Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
And you're very welcome back. It's Richie McCormack here with you tonight. I'm delighted to say, after a weekend of contrasting results, which have for North London sides, which have had an interesting impact on the Premier League title race, and a day in which Leeds have sacked their manager Jesse Marsch, it's all go. Pat Nevin joins us to wrap up what has been an eventful 72 hours, Pat. It's been quite something. I don't think the news has realised that it's a bank holiday over here, and we seem to have had a deluge of items befall us today.
Yeah, a good day to get bad news out, I think, because there's so much going on.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous. And you just wake up this morning and you think, I mean, all the way back to Friday when I watched the Chelsea game and everyone was expecting them to do this amazing new I was going to say million, but it's getting towards billion team out there. And that was a big story. And that's like gone, man. That's miles away. That's an eternity away. You watch Manchester City play the way they did. Was really surprising. They were kind of dull, but I think there's a few people thinking, oh, I get that now. I think there's one or two things in the background they're worrying about. But yeah, there's so many massive stories just now, particularly in the Premier League. I mean, Liverpool, for goodness sake, they give me 3-0. They're mid-table. It's not a meltdown, but it ain't far off it. It's extraordinary how much is going on. It's been
a rapid paced 72 hours and more, as you mentioned, going back to that Friday night West London 0-0 draw. We'll start with the Manchester City story. Obviously, Pat, it today broke. The Premier League have adjudged that they have broken a series of financial rules dating back to the 2009-2010 season. So ultimately, across these span of seasons, it looks like 100 plus rule breaches in terms of finances. This is going to be investigated by an independent panel. They won't have the luxury of going to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, as they have had previously in other financial investigations that involved or were centred around UEFA. In essence, as you mentioned, this may have been preying on people's minds yesterday, but certainly this is going to have a massive impact on how the remainder of Manchester City's season goes.
It could well have that. It's strange when you get 100 breaches. And I've trawled through and I can see one that I kind of know about, that kind of, and it was a sponsorship deal that they allegedly inflated. But there's other complaints as well. These will be complex things. And anyone who says, oh yeah, I know what's happening here, don't believe them, right? Because they don't. There's a lot of work to be done in this. And Manchester City have got phenomenal lawyers and they're going to work in that as well. But what is interesting, if they are found guilty of some of the more extreme allegations that are set towards them, they're talking about points deduction, etc. However, there is another bigger question. Yeah, we'll deal with that question as it comes. But there's a bigger question. What about all these people that are buying into the Premier League, putting all the money into it, and then you realise, well, actually, we might get done for that. We might get sued for that. A lot of them are thinking, do we want to do that anymore? Should we just bog off to Italy or Spain or something like that? So, the Premier League, well done them for or whatever who's doing it and looking at it and being hopefully honest about it. And it sounds as if they are honest about it. But it's one of those ones that get this big gun out and just about to shoot themselves in the foot. And well done. You've seemed to have the honour to do that. So I applaud them for looking at it closely, because if they've done things that are unfair, then they shouldn't be let away with it, because, other clubs hopefully play by the rules. Well, and note the hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. This dates back, the investigation I think goes as far back as about 4 years or so. So this has been coming. Manchester City would have been aware that this is in the works, but now it's something that they actively have to deal with, and they'll be lawyering up and they'll be preparing to go the distance with this. It hasn't necessarily cleared the clouds over the Etihad regarding yesterday's results against Tottenham, because I think from the off, when you look at the last couple of weeks in terms of the player turnover with João Cancelo heading out on loan and all parties saying that, no, everybody got on grand here, despite the fact that he's one of the best fullbacks in the world and they've gifted him to Bayern Munich for the rest of the season. And then you see the starting lineup come out yesterday and Kevin De Bruyne is on the bench and you're kind of thinking, what is going on here? And the result, the way it panned out, makes you think that either Pep Guardiola is trying to make things difficult for himself to give himself a challenge, or there is something a little bit off in the state of Manchester City.
I think, actually, I'm not writing Manchester City off just now, but certainly their style didn't seem there. And maybe remember, it's very, very hard to keep that style going for a long time. Remember, it was the likes of David Silva was De Bruyne at his very, very best. And, these are phenomenal players. Now, Silva's gone, you've got another Bernardo Silva in, you've got other players. But to try and keep the same thing going to the same level, you can see what Pep tried to do. He brought in Grealish and he's tried to adapt it a little bit. But it ain't easy to keep on going at that level, and particularly keeping that same style within the group. And watching it yesterday, you thought, they look a wee bit figured out there. They really did look a little bit figured out by Spurs. And Spurs can blow very hot and very cold as well. So whether it's, Pep's a little bit frustrated because he's not got the team doing what he wants to do, maybe there was a little discomfort in the camp with a number of players. When a player leaves, I don't know if Cancelo was incredibly popular within the group. You know what it's like in sports teams? If one of your best mates goes, yeah, they're selfish people, football people and sports people generally, it's just nature of the beast. But when one of the best mates goes, you think, oh, wait a minute, that could be next. That could be possibility of playing on it as well. The thing is, we don't know, but it doesn't look right at the moment. But if you look across, the number of teams where it doesn't look right, it doesn't look right at Liverpool at the moment. It certainly didn't look right at Chelsea for a long time at the moment. And there's a lot of teams where, they've been on top for a long, long time. It doesn't last forever. And see, when you need to make those changes, you better get them right. And they're not easy. And particularly if you're Manchester City and the others I mentioned there, you're paying top dollar for everything. You're paying over the odds for everything. Hence the temptation, to go back to where we started, to maybe overpay and maybe, do things that, are not exactly cutting corners, but, playing a little bit fast and loose with the rules. That's just the way they do it. But looking at City yesterday, it was that was really, really, really surprising. I have to say, second half particularly, you just thought, it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
What did you make?
It doesn't deserve to happen.
Yeah, what did you make of Guardiola's comments afterwards, where he talked about the time that it takes to get down to London and back from Manchester? I mean, this isn't the first time that they've gone from Manchester to London. It's a fairly common journey for teams from the northwest of England, and yet this seemed to have been raised last night, saying it was a 4.5 hour trip from. Now, I don't know if they were driving individually by a car, whether they got stuck on the motorway or whatever, but it seems like an odd one to pull out after what was effectively a narrow defeat last night.
Yeah, there's a limit of sympathy you're going to get from quite a lot of it, to be fair. Considering, a lot of the times we go by planes, some of us remember those long journeys from London to Newcastle and terrible weather and awful, basically just a whole bus. You're not talking a luxury coach or anything like that. Sometimes it's just an old bus and you have to make sure you'll be able to do with it. Remember, they've got a very, very decent sized squad as well, which should be able to adapt it. Look, it seems like an odd one, and it almost, in fact, it doesn't almost. It sounds like deflection. That sounds awfully like deflection to me. That's like, people will talk about that now. Yeah, well, let's ignore that and let's get back onto the real subject, why he ain't playing very well. And I ain't that. Yeah. That's not the real big problem. It was something much more than that. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne had come on and looked a little bit of a shadow of himself. So the question is it an age thing? Can he keep on doing it week in, week out, or 2 or 3 times a week? Or is it the fact that he's just playing and having to play him a little bit injured when he's not fully fit? All of these things could be possible, but I'm taking the coach journey as deflection. I'm taking it that way.
Well, we have to fit a lot in, Pat, so we'll move on to events at Goodison, your former side Everton there on Saturday afternoon. In retrospect, we probably should have seen this coming to a degree, because Sean Dyche goes in there, has a pretty limited amount of time with which to work with his new Everton players, and it would be a former Burnley man who gets the only goal of the game. But they looked a side reborn with Sean Dyche going in there from what they had been under Frank Lampard. There was an energy about them that I haven't seen in about 18 months there.
There's once or twice I've seen it with Everton, but it's only been once or twice, and it's only been for parts of games. Yet you watch that there, and it basically simplified everything. Unbelievably simplified. There was a lot of physicality there. He's got them whipped up. He's got them, interesting, one of the quotes he said, that some of the players felt they'd let Frank down. Would have been better to kind of show it in a different way, maybe way before the game. However, getting those players to put all that energy in. I mean, the amount of cross balls they get in, the amount of physicality and attacking the balls. Sometimes see all the intricate stuff. Dump it if you have to. It hurts me to say it, but if you're in a physically hurts me to say it. But sometimes that's what's needed. The dogs of war stuff. Now, Everton have done it before, back in Joe Royal times as well. Moisey had a period of that. Sometimes you have to dig in and make sure you've got guys on the pitch that were wanted to fight. But maybe if they could put it in one guy I've seen Onana a couple of times recently, and honestly, it looked as if he was playing the five-a-side game and he wasn't interested. Quite a few of the games, but he's got everything you need to be absolutely superb. Yet in watch Dyche, and straight inside his head, and he looks like a world beater. So it may well be the simple thing is Dyche is very good at getting a lift. Question remains, can he keep that lift going? They're not that far off. There's decent enough players there. The good thing, and here's the ultra good thing for Everton, the physicality is there. It's actually there. What Sean does, the kind of the clay and that he has to mould that team's actually there. So although they went for Bielsa first, which I thought was bizarre, lovely. That's the Everton spirit, skill of science, all that sort of stuff. Not the right players.
Yeah. Whereas
Dyche, absolutely. So they've got a chance now.
Even things like bringing in, like Abdoulaye Doucouré famously had been made to jog the perimeters at the Finch Farm pitches because he was a bad influence, it would seem, on the rest of the Everton dressing room, and he looked like he was a player reborn again. They looked like they could compete, and they looked like they believed they could compete through each single minute of that game. As you mentioned, consistency is going to be the thing, but again, having that consistency of effort throughout the game was something that I hadn't seen again in a while.
It is strange because working under various managers through your career, some brilliant, some less so, and the ones that get the most out of players, it's not the ones that shout or the ones that are nice or the ones that do this, do that. It's the ones that absolutely understand the psyche of every individual. That's not easy. And making sure that all the best players you've got are available to you and on the pitch and doing their best. And it sounds the simplest thing in the world. It's amazing how many people can't get it done. Frank leaving, he's done it a couple of times. He did it at Chelsea as well. Leaving people out where if everyone else is thinking, why are you doing that? And he's, morally thinking, because he's not behaving correctly. Well, sometimes you need to almost steamroll over that sort of stuff and say, right, I don't care. I'm going to get you in here and I don't care what it takes. And I know how to get inside your psyche. And to be fair, Ginger Mourinho's been doing that for a long time. He's fabulous at it. And and so at the end of Burnley, he left Burnley, but to keep them where they were for as long was monumental, absolutely monumental. And I think in many ways Everton have landed very, very lucky by getting him now. They could have made a lot worse decisions on it, but he's for all the shouting and the simplicity of tactics sometimes, there's no simplicity in the man.
Is this Premier League title race still a two-horse race, or is there a third or possibly even fourth involved in this now?
Yeah, I think there could be. Yeah, you just remember Sir Alex Ferguson always used to say. He always used to say the title race begins in January. Before that, you can have a good time and little runs here and there. Right, whoever can put it together between now and the end of the season can charge. The charge from United's been brilliant. It's been absolutely phenomenal. And it was very, very hard to predict it as well from where they were. Rashford coming from a player who I watched for the last season and a half thinking, I don't think it's physical, I think it's mental. What's wrong? Because you've got everything there, but watching your body language. And then you look at it now and you think, is it he just didn't want to be near Ronaldo? Not that I want to be the main man, but didn't like playing second fiddle. Purely because he was having to do work maybe twice a week. It might have been something as simple as that. But he's come in now. He's got a brilliant reaction from the team. So there's no doubt they're in it. I have to say, I'd rule Newcastle out. I've been to see them recently. I was at their recent cup games and, it's fabulous. They've got through at the cup final, but quality-wise and depth-wise, I think it's not quite there. It will be, but it's not there yet. So, yeah, there are teams that Arsenal definitely got a chance, but they've got their problem of Everton sussed how to beat and how to do Arsenal right. So who have they got next? Brentford. Yeah. They do exactly the same thing to them. Yeah. And, Brentford might be saying, yes, let's have a go at that one. I'll be at that game. I'm going to that game. So I cannot wait. It's different, obviously, it's at Emirates, but it should be a cracker. Sure. We will find out a lot about Arsenal in that one.
Yeah, I'd get the coming weeks are going to tell their own tale. All our football, of course, brought to you by Sky. Watch all the football you love, including the biggest Premier League games every weekend, live on Sky. The other big news today, Pat, of course, is Jesse Marsch paying for Leeds' run of form. That defeat to Nottingham Forest, basically bookending a period where they haven't won since before the World Cup. Now, they haven't been blown out of the water, I don't think, in any of those matches they've had since. There's been a few draws. They've had a couple of cup wins. But it's starting to lose to teams around them, and watching teams around them in the Premier League table begin, like Everton, to get an uptick in form and to begin to kind of sing again, whereas Leeds don't look like they can hold a tune at the moment. Where do they go next after sacking Jesse Marsch?
Well, first thing is, I'm the worst person to ask, right? Because I've been to see Leeds about 4 times this season, and they've been utterly brilliant every time, and they've won every game. Even I was down at the Accrington Stanley game, and you know, it's not the Accrington Stanley, but yeah, I saw them wipe the floor with Chelsea. Every team I've sent along, they're brilliant. So it's a tough one. I agree with you. I think it's harsh in March, because you look at the teams that I've looked at them before. Arsenal beat them 1-0. Fulham, they're doing well, 3-2, single goal, usual stuff. Newcastle, flying high, draw. Brentford, flying high, draw. No one really hammers them. It's just the odd goal. And what it does tell you is one simple thing. The difference between success and failure in the Premier League is stunningly, stunningly small. You wouldn't be surprised had they stuck by them a wee bit more and they might have got out of it and cruised along the mid-table. I wouldn't have been surprised with that, because they've got some very good players in there and they all clearly liked working for the manager. But where do they go now? That's the question. That's a hard one, because you could see the transition from Bielsa to Jesse Marsch. What do they do now? Do they get another sort of similar-ish attitude of, you know, high intensity, ultra attacking, or do they go to somebody who's a, you know, hired hand, gun for hire, somebody who does the normal things and just keeps them in the division? They may well do that. I have to say, I think that's a tricky one. I don't know if they're the right team to do that with. So if it would have been me, oddly enough, and I know a lot of Leeds fans don't think about it, 2 things I would have done. I probably would have stuck with them, and B, I would have got me a season ticket there, because I think that would have saved them.
You're clearly the good luck charm. They've got some rough games coming up. They've got that trip to Manchester United on the way, home and away in the Premier League, which oddly come so close together within 4 days. And then they've got Everton, obviously another team around them, Southampton, who are obviously in trouble themselves. And then to your former side, Chelsea. Like, they've got a decent footballing squad. They backed them in the January transfer window, which is always the most perverse thing when they decide to sack a manager a couple of weeks later. And they're all players who are brought in his own image. So there are guys coming in from the Bundesliga. There are people like Weston McKennie who made their name in that league and went off and maybe didn't have the best of times at Juventus coming in. And you're thinking that he's going to get the best out of these. They've got Patrick Bamford coming back fit again. Surely they can get out of this. And they're just a frustrating side. They're a frustrating entity, I think, is probably what I'm getting at here.
It is a shame though, but there is a massive fear. Obviously, you go to a Leeds game and the noise that you get there, the backing they get there, and never mind whether in the Premier League or not, it's always the same. It's brilliant, right? So it's a great place to go and watch football. The backing they give their team when they're doing okay, or just fighting the way they should be fighting, is extraordinary. It's as good as anyone in the league. You know, them and Newcastle, they're the best. And you go there, it's just fantastic start to finish. But the demands are high, and the demands, when that crowd is that vociferous, then starts turning either towards the manager or towards the board panic. That's what happens. It just happens every single time. And you know, they're going to have to make a decision now. Strange if they've made a decision and they don't have the answer yet. See, if you make a bigger call as that, you should have the answer. Wait, you should be sitting there. You know, why do it now, then go and search for somebody? They should have the answer ready. They should have thought about this going forward, and it may well be the case. But see if they leave it even 2 or 3 games, that might be too late. That might absolutely and utterly blow it for them, because at the end of this season, there's going to be about 7 or 8 clubs down there. There's going to be a point here or there. And that sort of slowness in decision, that sort of, if you're going to make it, make it. And if they don't get that right and they don't do it right quickly, they'll be down there for the rest of the season.
Yeah, okay. Pat Nevin, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you as ever, and to pack so much in as well. It was a thankless task. Thank you so much, and we'll speak to you again next week.
Pleasure as always.
Cheers, Pat.
Football on Off the Ball
with Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk.